Welcome to Leader, the podcast where we delve into the heart of leadership and education, exploring the journeys and practices of those shaping the future for Black and Brown students in charter schools. I'm your host, Darryl Cobb, president of the Charter School Growth Fund. In each episode, we sit down with exceptional leaders from the charter school community, unpacking not only their successes, but also the profound personal stories that compel them to lead. Our conversations aim to surface actionable insights and highlight what it takes to build a great school. Whether you're an educator, a leader, or someone passionate about the transformative power of education, there's something here for you. Let's discover together what makes these leaders tick, the challenges they've overcome, and the wisdom they've gained. Welcome to today's episode of Leader to Leader. This is the podcast where we get to know the incredible charter school leaders who are leading education for hundreds of thousands of students across this country. My name is Darryl Cobb. I'm the president of Charter School Growth Fund, and it's a pleasure to be here. Today I have my guest, the one and only Constance Jones, CEO of the Noble Network of Charter Schools, a dear friend and somebody that I look up to. So I'm really excited for this conversation.
I am too. Thank you, Darryl.
Good to see you today. Here. Good to see you too. And we know each other.
Yes.
And I know you as CJ, so I'm going to go with...
Please call me CJ.
I'm going to go with CJ for the audience.
Good.
That's what we're going to do.
Good.
So to get started, can you just tell me a little bit about Noble, the network, who you all are, how many schools you have, students served, those things. Then we're going to jump to the stories about you, and then we'll come back to the network.
Awesome. Great. And I'm really excited about this time today. Yeah. It's not often that we get a chance to just kind of talk and kick it.
Yes,
so
that's right.
This will be fun. So Noble, we are proud to serve over 12,000 students across 17 campuses throughout the city of Chicago. And we currently have 23,000 alumni who have graduated from Noble over the last almost 25 years at this point. Our mission is college. And so we are unapologetic about our purpose, which is to make sure that our kids are coming to us and they are being prepared for college, that they are having positive and equitable experiences with us that will equip them to graduate from college and to lead and live choice-filled lives. So we're really excited about serving Chicago. We see ourselves as a critical part of the educational fabric in Chicago. And again, we've been doing this work for over 2.5 decades at this point.
Love that. And in case anybody's watching this podcast who is from Chicago, you know Chicago is all about what side of the city are you from. Mm-hmm. So where are Noble schools situated in the city of Chicago?
Yeah, so we serve kids from all 77 neighborhoods. And so that's a pretty powerful thing.
Absolutely.
And it really is a testament to how students and families choose us every single day. They are getting on buses, they're walking. Our schools are in the neighborhood. I tell people all the time who try and act like charter schools aren't neighborhood schools. Like, my kids aren't coming from, Pluto and Mars. They're walking from their homes, from their blocks to our schools every single day. And they're choosing us because of the high quality public school education that we provide them. And so whether it's Auburn Gresham or Brighton Park or the near West Side, our kids, they come from everywhere. And we really consider it an honor to be able to serve them.
That's great. That's great. Okay. We're going to put a pause because you already said like 3 things I want to come back to. But we're going to put a pause in that. And I want to help our audience understand a little bit about you. And so we'll walk through accomplishments and how you got here, but take me back to the high school or the middle school. Were you CJ then? Were you Constance then?
Yeah, it depends on who you were.
Okay.
So most people called me Constance. My mom called me Connie Bunny. It was actually my first AOL Instant Messenger name.
I love that.
But CJ kind of caught on in college, actually. And then it just took off from there. But I'm originally from North Carolina. I was born and raised in Durham, North Carolina. Right. And all of my family is...
Duke or UNC fan?
I mean, let's ask great questions, intelligent questions. Today, Darryl, I'm a North Carolina fan. I am unapologetic about being a North Carolina fan. I mean, I bleed Tar Heel blue so much that it comes out on my nails.
I love it.
But yeah, I actually went to North Carolina because of their college basketball program originally, because I come from a big basketball family. Everybody's tall and everybody plays or played basketball at some point. But all my family's from the rural eastern part of North Carolina. My mom was the only one of 8 kids to go to college and to graduate from college. And when she did, she became a public school teacher for almost 3 decades. My dad loved math. He was a math whiz. And he loved math so much that he named me Constance, which means the constant. And he went on to become a very successful statistician.
Okay.
And he was the first African-American male to graduate with a Master of Science in Statistics from North Carolina State University. So being a big North Carolina fan, being a big basketball fan, I was disappointed when North Carolina, which was a number 1 seed, got kicked out the tournament this year. But I was proudly, rooting for North Carolina State because of the legacy that my dad had there. So yeah, I am a proud Tar Heel who has lived in the city of Chicago now for 16 years. It really, truly feels like home to me. And I love this city. I have some days when I'm leaving my church on the south side of Chicago and I'm driving up Lakeshore Drive and I'm just like, man, I'm just so blessed to be here. And my greatest aspiration is that for this moment that I'm leading Noble, like that I can make this city a better place for thousands and thousands of students, Noble students, but really students all throughout Chicago.
Love that. All right, we're gonna come back to you leading for all of those students in Chicago, but I wanna jump back to North Carolina and then we'll fast forward. So, Cunny Bunny?
Cunny Bunny.
Cunny Bunny.
Yeah, that was the AOL Instant Messenger name.
Love that. So you, in high school, what did you want to be when you grew up? And tell me how education, like how did you end up in education? Where'd your passion for education come from?
Sure. And I really I think it's important to highlight the middle school piece and the high school piece because the two were very unique and different for me. So in middle school, I started out like a lot of middle schoolers, like very excited about, being with my peers and feeling like I was kind of like growing up in a lot of ways. And my first couple years of middle school were really, really hard. I was bullied pretty relentlessly.
Oh, wow.
So much that for this 3-month period of time, I remember during my 6th grade year, the counselor would call my dad and be like, Mr. Jones, come pick her up. Like she's falling apart again. I would start crying and I would just be a mess. And a lot of the bullying happened because I went to a school at a time that was like 50% white, 50% black. And I was the only black kid in like the academically and intellectually gifted classes. And the black kids, man, they like nailed me to the wall. Like I was called an Oreo, I was called a sellout, and I just couldn't get why I could not be accepted for showing up like as just the person that I am. Fast forward, I went to an all black high school. And I loved this high school. It is a historically black high school in North Carolina. And yet at the same time, I always found myself frustrated because there were some great things happening at the school academically. There were a lot of challenges. And so you had kids kind of like on both sides. There were a lot of fights. And I remember the times when we would get publicity. It was either because of the fights or maybe because like our basketball team or our football team did something excellent. But I felt, despite the challenges that our school had, I felt seen and I felt affirmed by my peers. And I'm really grateful for that experience that I had at my high school in Durham, North Carolina. But when I got to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and majored in business, which is one of the most competitive majors there. Absolutely. Like I found myself struggling. Like I was like, I don't know if my high school really truly prepared me for the rigor of college. Like I remember my freshman year, I was scared every single day that I was going to flunk out of college. I had an older sister who had attended college and she stopped out of college, and I saw the devastating impact that had on my parents. And I knew I could not be that. So I worked my tail off my freshman year to catch up and to fill some of those gaps and get extra tutoring and things that I needed in order to be successful. So, I had a mixed middle school, high school experience, but, it certainly made me who I am today, and it certainly has informed how I lead at Noble today as well.
Oh, that's great. I share your, I was up the road in Charlottesville at UVA for undergrad, and I remember when I walked into my first calculus class in engineering, and I thought, I had calculus in high school, so I'm going to skip Calc 1 and I'm just going to go straight to Calc 2.
Yeah.
And I walked in there, and it was about 30 to 45 seconds into the first class, I realized I am out of my league.
That's right.
In here, and I need to do some serious work to catch up.
And how many black kids were in your class?
In high school?
In at UVA.
In UVA, there were a handful of us in engineering. So there were probably 30 or 40 of us spread across all of the engineering.
All of the engineering
disciplines.
Yeah. See, and that's what I know we are both working to change.
That's right.
Like,
it shouldn't be the exception.
No,
it should be the norm.
I'm sitting in a business class at UNC Chapel Hill, and it's really competitive. You have to apply to be in the business school, and a lot of folks who look like us, like freshman year when they're taking the prerequisite courses, which then put them in a position to apply. They're like, I'm out. Like, I'm not And so there were literally 6 black people that I can remember out of my class of like 330 in the business school. And that's unacceptable because, I am a very non-traditional, a CEO of, a charter network. But my business background has served me very, very well. Because at the end of the day, yes, we work in education, but I oversee a over $230 million operating budget. I have over 1,500 employees.
Yes.
I have over 12,000 kids. Like, we run very complex organizations that are doing some of the most important work in the country. We don't get our flowers the way we should. And I've been able to build on a lot of the knowledge that I've learned through this, rather, non-traditional path. So, I mean, I know like you, I'm working to change that. Like,
that's right.
There should be, 10 times as many, black and brown students in the engineering classes and in the business classes.
Because innately, we are more than capable.
Absolutely.
Right? There's systems designed that are not educating young people who look like me and you to the levels that they should, so that they can realize those innate abilities that they have.
That's right. And you probably saw, I think it was a New York Times article that talked about the happiest people in the world were like engineer majors in college. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Any opinion from an engineering major why that was the case? I was fascinated by this, but I could kind of guess.
Well, and I think part of it is because as an engineering major, it just means you got your butt kicked. And so you know what it feels like to get your butt kicked and come out on the other side.
Yeah.
But B, I think part of it is engineering teaches you how to solve problems. And no matter what you're going through in life, being a problem solver is going to be advantageous to you, whether that is in your profession, in your family life, in your faith life, right? Those are always going to be places where as problems creep up, you're not running from them, you're running to them because you innately know how to solve problems.
That's right.
And that's why.
Yeah. And our kids need to be problem solvers. They need to be put in a place where they can learn, where they can earn a higher income, right? Because that opens doors. I think I remember reading something about that. Like, engineers, they're making good money. And that matters, right?
The reality is we know that as Black people, by the year 2053, the effective Black wealth in this country is going to be zero.
Yeah, that's devastating to hear.
That is not that far away.
No, it's not.
Right? That's well into the reality of the young people who you are serving at Noble today. And unless we do something different, that's not going to change. So that's why I want to dig into what is it that you all are doing at Noble. So how did you, tell me the story of how you became CJ, the CEO of Noble, and then we'll get into a little bit about what makes Noble special.
Sure. So I admittedly did not go to college thinking that I would be the CEO of one of the largest, most successful charter networks in the country. Like, that that was not what I was thinking. But I've learned that you can have a plan, but you also have to be open to, pivoting and taking a different path. So as I mentioned, I was a business major. The charge of my family was very clear. Someone needs to make some money in this household. Right. So are you going to be a business major? Are you going to be a lawyer? Are you going to be a doctor? Because that's really like all we really knew in terms of like money making, careers or professions. I chose business in large part because I sold shoes at Lady Foot Locker for 6 years, starting in high school throughout college until they literally just like closed them all down. So once upon a time, I was a sneakerhead. And then the
favorite pair ever. Favorite pair.
Air Max. I'm an Air Max 95 girl.
Air Max 95s.
Yes.
Love them.
And the funny thing is, I bought my first fun fact. I bought my first pair of Jordans last year.
Okay.
Even though I'm a big Jordan fan and grew up a big North Carolina fan, big Bulls fan my entire life, we couldn't use our discount at Lady Foot Locker on Jordans. So because we can use our discount and
Lady Foot Locker, what's going on with that?
I know. So I don't know. Maybe the new CEO, Mary Dillon, has changed that since then. But I remember we couldn't use our discount, and I was like, well, I'm not paying full price for these shoes. Like we like deals in the Jones family. So so that was a pivotal experience for me that pushed me into becoming a business major. I mentioned my family. My family is from the rural eastern part of North Carolina, and that was a very present experience in my life growing up. Literally every 2 to 3 weeks, we would get in the car and we would go and we'd spend time with our cousins and our aunts and our uncles. And my mom was the only college educated one in the bunch, and I would just be looking around and I would be so perplexed because I'd be like, these are my family. We got some of the same DNA and all the things. Same values and principles, and yet our lives are very different. Yep. And it was never lost on me that the reason why our lives were different is because my mom and my dad were able to go off and to get a college degree. And that then opened doors for me to be able to go off and do the things that, I was able to do. But the charge was clear, got to college, someone's got to make some money. So I chose business. I worked at Johnson & Johnson in pharmaceutical sales, and I chose that because I was like, I can do sales. I did sales in high school. I was one of the top sales reps. I had like the highest multiple percentage sales when I was working at Foot Locker. And then I decided to get my MBA. That was always a goal of mine, to push myself in education, and I wanted to learn more about business. So I got my Master of Business Administration from Harvard Business School. And I took a class called Entrepreneurship and Education Reform, taught by the lovely Stacey Childress, who is the reason why I decided to get into education. Like
so many people she inspires.
She has.
So many people.
I saw her last week when I was in San Diego for this conference, and it's always this love fest. And I've told her probably 10,000 times, like, thank you for inspiring me to go into education. Because she literally pulled me aside one day after class and said, you need to go into education. And I was like, the charge is very clear.
I gotta make money.
Like, what are we doing? And so I stayed on the path. Like, I graduated in 2008, and I got this amazing dream job, if you will, in the spa operations division of Hyatt Hotels, because one of my hobbies is going to the spa. And I would go to the spa and I'll research the spa, travel around the world, around the country. If there's a spa, I'm going and I'm taking notes and I'm doing all the things. And so, at HBS, they teach you can do anything. So I had this idea that I'm going to work in the spa industry. And I found a job. And it was a great job, but I said it was 2008. So a few months into my job.
Tough times.
Yeah.
Tough times coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Tough times coming.
Actually, approximately 2 days before Thanksgiving, my big boss at the time called me into the office and said, that multi-million-dollar flagship spa project that we hired you to do, we're not doing it. Money's gone. Everyone was pulling back because of recession. Like half my classmates lost their jobs. It was a wild time. And so I was still working for Hyatt, but I was working in a very different capacity. They were very gracious and generous to me. And a few months later, it was like February, and I was on a project in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It was negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and I was sitting in my room eating a bison burger. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I should probably start looking for another job. Like,
that would be a sign.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, listen, I was traveling 100% of the time, but I wasn't doing the work I signed up to do. And literally 3 days later, one of my classmates from HBS, from that entrepreneurship and education reform class, reached out to me and said, there's this great opportunity with KIPP. I don't know what you're doing right now, but I think you should go for it. Because I had the opportunity during that class to share my personal story. And it really resonated with her. So she thought of me. And I went for it. I got the job. I did that for 6 years. But I was working all across the country, serving in these various roles at the KIPP Foundation. But I was living in Chicago. And the more I continued to live in Chicago, the more I was like, man, like I want to do something about what I'm seeing here in Chicago in terms of the opportunities and serving our kids. And then this opportunity opened up at Noble as the Chief External Affairs Officer. And assistant principal, who I knew because I had tutored and mentored some Noble kids like many years prior, reached out to me and said, you should go for this job. And I did. And so now 10 years later, I'm really privileged and honored to serve as the CEO. I can't make any of this stuff up. I, started at Noble as the Chief External Affairs Officer as the first person of color ever to serve on the senior team, the Chiefs team, just to name it. That means all my colleagues were white men. And I did that first job for about 3 years before I was promoted to president. And I was in that role for like 10 months before we had a very abrupt CEO transition. Mm-hmm. And then I was tapped to lead the organization. And that was in November of 2018. So, I tell these stories because, there are lots of lessons that I've learned. And so one is kind of how I started off this conversation. I think it's important to have a plan. And I tell our kids all the time, you got to have a plan. You must have a plan. Right. But also, it's okay to pivot. Another lesson I learned when I was working at KIPP, I was in a couple of roles, particularly in the early days, that I didn't love. I'm a relationships person. I'm a storyteller. I'm a go out here and get things done from a relational perspective. And I was doing spreadsheets all day, crunching numbers. My name is Constance. My dad named me after math. So in some ways it made a lot of sense. I could use my MBA to do all these things. But my parents had always taught me, whatever you're doing, even if you don't love it, crush it, because people will notice. They'll pay attention. And so I got promotion after promotion after promotion. And, I tell people just to take advantage of every opportunity you get, because you never know where it's going to lead you. And even the crisis of a massive recession hitting and appending your plans to go open a luxury spa ended up being a blessing in disguise. I chose education because of circumstances that were very much beyond my control, and I'm here today, and I love it. And I've been able to impact thousands and thousands of lives in Chicago and families, and truly drive multi-generational change. So everything worked out the way it should have, in my opinion.
That's right. Well, there's not a lot of great stories about that recession, but the fact that got you into education, I will say thank you, recession.
It was a pivot point. It was a pivot. And I tell kids that all the time, bad things happen to us.
That's right.
It's life, and life be lifing, there are bad things that happen to us. And how do we look at whatever we're dealing with and make it into good? I always believe there is a way. It's not easy. I want to be very clear. I'm not a bootstrap person or anything like that. It's not always clear and it's not always fair, but usually I and we can figure out a way to get something good or learn something good out of a bad situation. So it's a lot of mindset work.
Got it. All right, let's pivot to Noble and the young people that you serve and what makes Noble special. I'm assuming that most of the people who are watching this podcast right now or listening to us know what a charter school is, but I don't want to assume that everybody knows that. So can you state for those who may not know, what is a charter school? And then we're going to dig into what makes Noble a special place.
Perfect. And I welcome that question, because there are a lot of people who are confused, or there are people who put out narratives that they know aren't true about charter schools. So I never miss an opportunity to just set the record straight. In Illinois, we are public schools. We are public schools, that is state law. We serve everybody, okay? We are open enrollment. So that means that if there is a seat, whoever you are, can get that seat. The only time we have like waiting lists and things like that is when we have more demand than we do seats. So very important for people to understand. And in terms of what makes us unique, there are lots of things, and I'll speak, to a Noble specifically in a little bit. But some of the things that I appreciate as CEO is like the flexibility and the autonomy to make decisions that are truly best for kids and to move very quickly to make those decisions. So, you talked about being an engineer and being able to solve problems.
Yes.
Gosh, that's such a undervalued skill set. Like, I think about the multitude of problems that I face every single day and that leaders face every single day. It's a lot. And our charter structure allows us to name the problem, to brainstorm solutions, to put resources behind that problem quickly so I can move resources around to be able to address it. In theory and in practice, it allows us to better address student and family needs because we're able to move fast in order to address the need. Because guess what? Folks don't have time to waste. Our kids don't have time to waste. And one of the things I also appreciate Noble specifically, as I've shared before, is that our mission is college. Like, that is what we are about. When we've surveyed thousands of our students and our families and talked with thousands of our students and families, they choose us because we make promises to them that we'll do everything we can to ensure that their kids are college ready and have the opportunity to go off to college. And so that is something that as a charter, we're really proud of, is that we've made that our core focus.
Yes. And how do parents, students, families, how do they find you all and apply to you? And then is there anything beyond college that you have found is a driving factor for students to choose? Because you're dealing with high school students.
Yes, high school
students. And so there's some, it's different if they're elementary and parents are doing all the choosing, but kids oftentimes have some say in the high school decision.
Sure.
So what's bringing them in?
Yeah, what's bringing them in? So first and foremost is reputation. Word of mouth, just like many things, whether it's a school or church or, anything else, right? And so, we're fortunate that we've been doing this work for 25 years in this city. And I was talking to a parent last week who was like, I've had 3 kids graduate from Noble, one from Johnson College Prep, another from Hansberry College Prep, and, another from another school. And they currently had a student at the Noble Academy. That's amazing for a few reasons. One, it's just the trust. Like, there's nothing more sacred than a parent and their child.
As a parent who drops off every day, that's the thing. Yes.
And the fact that you chose us not once, but twice, 3 times, 4 times. I mean, my God, I'm sorry, that makes me get up and want to do my job as hard as I can every single day. So it's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of, literal multi-generational like families like choosing us over and over again, which I'm really, really proud of. In addition, just more on like the tactical execution of it all, we're part of the Go CPS application system, which was started under Dr. Janice Jackson when she was at Chicago Public Schools. And so that was designed to really streamline the application process because, Chicago Public Schools is like a district of school choice.
Right.
We can talk about that a little later and the politics that are making that really messy and unfortunate, but that is like how a lot of families then will choose us, is that they will then rank us in that application system. You had a second question that you were asking on the back end of like, how families choose us. What was the second part of the question that you were asking?
Yeah, the second part is, actually, you know what? I want to go to a different question.
Okay, that's
go
fine.
Back.
All right.
I was going to go back, but I want to go forward. I want to go forward. So families choose you. Students enroll at Noble. What makes the experience at Noble different from that of other high schools who also purport to be college prep in their focus?
Great question, because I tell you, you start off by talking about high school and how unique high school can be.
Yes.
The fact that we are an all high school model. Minus we do have one school that's a 6 through 12.
Okay.
Fair. But for the most part, like we are a high school model. And I think that's important to note because like we specialize in high school. Like we double down and we specialize in high school. We've had opportunities and inquiries around like starting elementary schools and things like that. But we've really said we're going to focus on this because there's a need in the city. And if we focus on it, we'll be able to do it very, very well. All right. So there's that. But, one of the things that I think makes us very unique is that we have worked really hard to ensure that like day in and day out, we are affirming the identities and experiences of the Black and brown students that we serve. And my belief based on conversations I have with students and families, but also when I walk into schools, I was in a school right before I came here, is that our families, they see that and they feel that like every single day. That support is important because our kids, they come with so many gifts and so many talents, and it's challenging being a teenager in Chicago. You need to be able to walk through those doors and feel safe. That's right. Physically, emotionally, mentally. And I really believe that our teachers and staff do a really great job of affirming our kids and their identities. And that is infused not just throughout like the advisories and things like that make us unique, but also the curriculum and the content that we choose to ensure that we are preparing our kids to be college ready. I mean, right before I came here, as I mentioned, I was at a school and I was talking to a student who had made a really, really bad choice. Okay.
High schoolers.
I mean,
high
kids,
schoolers. We make
kids.
I made bad choices. Yeah. Everybody makes bad choices.
Yes. And it was heartbreaking because I don't do this often, but I would say this is one of the things that makes Noble unique. The principal reached out to me and asked me to come and to talk with the student. So I talked with the student and I also talked with the student's parent. And I was really just curious to hear about like what did they learn throughout this experience? And, my opening framing for my comments was like, first of all, you just need to know that, I'm here because I care. You got to say that, especially because it can be very intimidating for kids,
the CEOs in a room.
Yeah, but like, I'm here because I care. Your principal called me because he cares. And your mom is here because, she cares. And then we got to talk about the thing and we got to talk about what's, the lessons learned. At the end of the day, I just want our kids to be great. That's it, So I'm giving that as an example because it's something we don't talk about a lot oftentimes, particularly when it relates to the bigger babies, to the high schoolers. Like our kids need to be seen, affirmed. They need to be held to the fire at times because of the decisions that they make, but they also need to be loved like they're kids, and so I think that's truly foundational to the work that we do. And what bolsters all of that work really is just the people that we hire. I cannot say enough about the teachers and the staff and the principals and the support team staff and the chiefs, the leaders that I get to work with every single day, our principals. Oh my gosh, our principals. I mean, they're the ones that are just really like, their jobs are so hard.
So hard. So hard.
I mean, can we just like, period, and just pause on that? Their jobs are so important and so hard. And we have some really great principals. And so we're really intentional about our hiring. We are intentional about ensuring that the folks that we hire reflect the communities that we serve, whether it's like, being from Chicago and having that experience or, whatever type of experience you bring. It could be like race, it could be, being a first generation, college graduate yourself, or it could be a Noble alum, someone who was once a student and is now a graduate of Noble. So that's a really important part. And just our mission and our vision and ensuring that we are making decisions that are grounded in those things. I mean, I remember just so many times leading during the pandemic and literally having like 100 problems like hit me on one day. And no one really knew what they were doing because we'd never seen this before. And so when I had to make these really tough decisions, I would go back to our mission, like why we exist. I would go back to our values. And those things would help, like, basically serve as my compass and guide me in my decision making when we, quite frankly, had very little information to make decisions.
I can't imagine, and I am so in awe of your leadership during the pandemic. Was just tremendous. You've given me like 15 different threads I want to pull on in your answers.
Okay, well, go ahead, pull away.
But the first one I want to pull on is, you say Noble's a college prep school. And so we all have in our mind a vision of a school with kids hunched over books, like studying hard, doing the things so that they could be on a path to college. But yet you all provide so much more to students than just pure academics that I think goes not talked about much. Can you give a little glimpse into the array of things that are happening at Noble high schools that are also college preparatory, but not in the traditional academic sense?
Absolutely. And so, I mean, I could talk about a lot of things. I could talk about our athletics, which are really, really strong. Like, we have a great team that ensures that our students are able to participate in a plethora of things. And it's hard for us as charter schools because we don't have the big, beautiful gyms and facilities and swimming pools.
Football fields.
My goodness, no, we don't have those things. But, you know, we have an incredible basketball team, one of which I'll mention on the south side at one of our schools in Pullman, who pretty consistently, like, they are like crushing it every season. And that means something to the students we serve.
That's right.
I had a teacher just last week reach out to me, and he started a bird watching club at his school. And I'm looking at these photos of the kids in the park around the corner from the school and all the different birds. And I love birds. Like, my first pet was a parakeet named Harry, who ended up being a girl, laid an egg, and then I had to change her name to Harriet. And I loved that experience. I was like 8 years old when I got Harry/Harriet. And I was just so like amazed and enthralled, like, by this program that the teacher was like, listen, I want to start this. And it was really cool because he was raising money for binoculars for all the kids. And so, like, you know, I provided the money out of my personal funds, actually, to make sure that he could meet his fundraising goal. Because it was important to me that, you know, our kids have these experiences. And so we have things like that. And again, this is one of the things I love about being a charter school. I've had students reach out to me and say, Ms. Jones, I want to start a chess club at my school. And I'm like, well, what do you need to start a chess club? And it's usually pretty simple.
Right.
Like, it's like, you know,
a board and some pieces.
And a room so we can meet after school.
Cool.
You know, I talked with the principal. I was like, hey, I got this, you know, email from, you know, the student. And it's like, okay, done. Yeah, we can do that.
That's great.
It's like, we really try to lean into our students and their interests, whatever they might be, athletics, bird watching, chess, and do what we can to provide the resources for them. But related to the college front, because it is all connected, we have this amazing program called the Summer of a Lifetime program that a lot of folks.
Follow-up questions.
One of my
favorite programs.
Yeah. And so we last summer sent our 10,000th student to these summer programs across the country.
Wait, say that statement.
10,000 students, 10,000 Chicago students to these summer programs all across the country, like Harvard, Georgetown, North Carolina A&T, you name it, all kinds of HBCUs. And they go between their sophomore and their junior year of college. And it allows them
high school.
High school. Thank you for correcting me.
College,
Sophomore and junior year of high school. And they go off to these colleges and universities, and it allows them to just like engage in deep learning around a topic that they're just curious about. It could be like forensics, or it could be nursing, or it could be something in business. And we found for a lot of our kids that like that's the spark. Like we've been talking to them their freshman and sophomore year about college, and they've never maybe been on a college campus before. They step foot on a college campus. Yeah, they deal with some insecurities and things like that. Like, should I be here? This is weird. I'm away from home. I just took my first flight, away from Chicago.
Imposter syndrome, I'm
all
sure.
Those things, right? But then they end up loving it. And then they come back and they're juniors in high schools and they're like, oh my God, like I want to go to college. And it fires them up. They apply, they get into college. I mean, we've found that students who participate in the Summer of Lifetime program, they're graduating at a rate of 61%. 61% of the kids. 61%. All right, so those 10,000 kids I was talking about, 61% of them graduate from college. I mean, that is like on the same level as like the top income quartile.
Earners.
Yep.
Yes.
In the country, okay? That's significant. And so we really try, I mean, that's directly related to college in a lot of ways, but just think about, just generally speaking, how life-changing it is for a kid here in the city of Chicago to be able to use their summer traveling to somewhere else and experiencing a different part of the country, or experiencing like a new topic. I mean, that's what we're about.
It helps the young people see that this is a place where I can fit in.
That's right.
Where I can go, where I am welcome,
mm-hmm.
and frankly, because of what you all are doing, where I can compete.
That's right.
Right? I think a lot of times our young people build up this, well, I can't compete, I'm not good enough. Like the kids there all went to private schools and are from the suburbs, but you all put them on campuses and they're like, oh, I'm actually better than a lot of these kids.
That's right. They are.
Right?
I mean, that's the spark. That's the light, And so every day we're like searching for moments to create that spark or that light. And it can happen through a lot of the, intentional, academic programming. It can happen through like the extracurricular. It can happen through the conversations like the conversation I had before I came here with the student. Like we're looking to like ignite those flames and Okay.
Mm-hmm. I want to get in a second to, you mentioned the 61%. I want to get in a second to the results and what you all have accomplished at Noble. But before we get there, I think it is easy for people to think, this sounds amazing. Mm-hmm. College prep, high school, they have all of these other things that kids can start bird watching and chess clubs. They go away to Summer of a Lifetime on college campuses. That sounds great. They must have students who are high academic achievers when they come in ninth grade. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me a little bit about the range of students who come to you at Noble and what you all do to ensure that everybody reaches the finish line?
Absolutely. And so definitely a misconception out here is that we're cherry picking. I mean, every time I hear it, I'm like, okay, they say we got the kids who not causing any problems. They're not fighting and they're not bringing guns to school. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing this work every single day and I'm seeing all these issues in these schools, because at the end of the day, we are schools in Chicago. And
schools for high schoolers.
For high schoolers in Chicago, we are not immune to all the other things that unfortunately we're seeing in our city. I have a school that since August of 2023, I've had 5 kids shot at that one school. Wow. 5 kids shot at that one school. And sadly, I often lose count because it's a lot to track. But I know about a month and a half ago, I had about 20 kids that had been victims of gun violence since August. Since August. So we're not even this
not even a full year.
No. I think that data might be from like February. So sadly, I know we've had some other incidents over the last couple of months. And so, our kids, when they experience that, when their peers experience that, when their family members experience that, like they take that into the school community. I mean, one of the beautiful and complex things about serving high school students is, to me, they really truly reflect what's going on in the greater world, in the community. Like they're little adults, you know, and they absorb and they, you know, interpret a lot. And so we've really worked hard over the last few years, particularly during this time of pandemic and post-pandemic, to make sure that we are doing everything we can to support the social emotional needs of our students. And so they show up with that. 98% of our kids are Black and brown. And the vast majority, 84% of them, will be the first in their families to go off to college. We proudly serve roughly 16% of our students have IEPs or diverse learners. I mean, we serve Chicago kids. Like our kids are from the community. And again, like they choose us, and I'm proud that they choose us every day. So yeah, I find it very frustrating when people, they see the results and they're thinking like, oh, well, you know, they're just taking the good kids.
That's right.
Don't get me wrong. My kids are great. I love my kids. But again, they're not immune. And we are not immune to the challenges that you're seeing throughout our city, but we just work relentlessly to figure out how we're going to serve them and prepare them in the short time we have them for college.
Yeah, that's incredible work. All right, let's take a second, and I'm going to give you, this is brag time. So if we had like a big flashing thing that we could put on the screen. Talk to me a little bit about the results from Noble. What are you most proud of?
Yeah, well, again, because we are so like ingrained in college, like I have to start there because again, that's why our students and our families, they choose us because of our commitment to college. And so we don't have the class of 2024 stats yet, but we will very soon. But our class of 2023, they hit a record-breaking over $630 million in scholarships and grants.
Say that number again?
$630 million.
And how many kids is that?
Oh, gosh. Well, that's about 3,000 kids in that graduating class.
That's incredible.
Thank you. Just a testament to our amazing, principals and teachers and staff and administrators who work tirelessly to ensure that that's possible. Our college counselors who are out here hustling to find our kids money. Like our kids need money, to be the first in their families to go to college. And so we take that responsibility very seriously. And last year, that class, 80% of them went off to college, which is huge given the landscape.
Huge number.
Yeah, I mean,
especially post-pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are just declining. We got a whole bunch of people out here with college degrees and their family members and kids with college degrees or currently enrolled in college saying, oh, college doesn't matter for kids. I'm like, what? So we've seen a national decline in our college statistics, but Noble, stands strong at 80% with, again, the vast majority, 70% going off to four-year colleges and universities and 10% choosing two-year options. And so we're really, really proud of that. In terms of our SAT growth, because, we have high schoolers and that's what we do is the SAT. This last cohort, we just took the SAT, not too long ago. So we don't have those results yet. But the cohort before, we were really excited that we saw pre-pandemic growth with our 10th and 11th graders. And so we were just like, wow, like we're on the path. We didn't see as much growth with our 9th graders. But the challenge is because of the learning loss that has happened during the pandemic, it's like we can grow the kids like we did before, and that's what we're known for, and that's what Stanford has said, and MIT has said, Noble grows kids, and we do, but it's harder because we're digging out of a bigger crater, a deep hole. So we've got to figure that out. And we're working really, really hard with regard to our accelerated learning focus, with regard to our culture and climate focus to ensure that we are doing everything we can to accelerate and propel those results. But it's the hardest work I will ever do. And but yeah, we're serving the kids in Chicago who need it most and deserve it most. So really proud of that.
Wow. congratulations to you, and obviously to the team of adults in the organization who are doing that work with kids each and every day.
It's definitely a team effort, that's for sure. You can't do it by yourself, and that's one of the things as a leader you learn very quickly.
Yes. I'm going to actually come back to that point in a second, but I want to pick up on something you mentioned earlier. You said you have alum who are back now as teachers and principals. Tell me a little bit about that. How many, is that common thing at Noble?
Yeah.
That speaks volumes that they had such a great experience that they want to come back and contribute.
It's amazing. I mean, it's really humbling when you think about it. Like the fact that you can spend 4 years with us and then go off and you could do whatever you want to do. And yet you say, I'm going to come back and I'm going to serve students and families in Chicago, and I'm going to serve at my home high school institution. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I remember at one time, it was like 100 and something out of our current staff who were working a variety of roles, like from teacher to leader, as you mentioned. Certainly have a couple principals currently who are Noble alums, and then I have someone on my chiefs team, on my leadership team, who's a Noble alum.
Wow.
I mean, that's the work. Like that to me is what we are all about. Is developing the next generation of leaders. And then I get the joy of every day through just the seat as CEO, being able to see those leaders thrive in service to kids that look like them. That's pretty cool.
That's very cool. That's very, very cool. Okay. You mentioned as a leader recognizing that you can't do it alone and that you need support. So I'm wondering, as the CEO, who do you lean on for support? Who's your ride or die crew? Maybe both inside Noble and out that you lean on to help you, propel you to do the work that you do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a great team. I say it at least 5 times a day to somebody, because I mean, it's such tough work and it's lonely work. And there are times where I was doing something yesterday. I was in a meeting, and then I got a call from one of our directors, and she's like sharing this problem with me. And I was like, I never in my wildest dreams would have thought when I woke up this morning that I'd be dealing with this problem today. I'm like, this is a crazy problem. And I can't make this stuff up, right? And so, I lean on leaders to help us figure out these complex problems that could have like a life-changing impact on our kids. And so, I can't say enough great things about the team that I work very closely with. From top to bottom, they're amazing. Principals, like I will always have a love fest with principals, because at the end of the day, they are at the helm, and they are accountable for what is happening within their school from top to bottom. And that's a lot to carry every single day. And of course, our teachers, my mom being a teacher and seeing the sacrifice that she made time and time again for almost 30 years. I mean, I know from that seat what it means to be a teacher and to be showing up and pouring into your kids every single day. My mom used to pour into kids so much. She'd come home and she'd be like, I'm sorry, I just don't have anything left. Just don't have anything left. And that's kind of like the deal. That's the pact you have.
That's right.
Oftentimes when you have a mom or dad who is a teacher. So I really do lean on my team a lot, and I'm fortunate that many people from my team, they've been at Noble for a long time. Like they live and breathe the mission. Like it's deep, it's personal, and like they're doing everything they can to ensure that they're fulfilling their promises to kids. And I just stand in awe of them. But on the flip side, listen, I'm one of those folks who I believe you got to have a life outside of work. You have to, because the work never stops. Like I tell people all the time, it's a 24/7 job, period, point blank, like, don't fool yourself. There's always things that are happening that are going to take your time and attention. So you have to be really intentional about creating that space for friends, for creating that space for families. Like, I'm very involved in my church. I am very involved in a couple of the ministries there. I sing on the praise team. So actually tonight we have our Bible conference. Like, I'm going to go sing to open up the Bible conference. And, those things help me be the person I am today and help fill my cup, so then I can then have the fuel to do the work.
Yeah, really. That really resonates. That you gotta pour in all that you can, and you gotta have some things outside of work.
For sure.
That are also giving you life.
Absolutely. So, like, for example, what do you like to do? What kind of, because you work very hard too. I know we haven't talked a lot about you, and but like it's like you're doing this work on a local, national, just because you're here in Chicago, so it's but like really on a national level. And we got our challenges in Chicago, but we got a lot of challenges nationally, and you're like carrying all that. So what do you do?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. So I got my butt kicked at Orange Theory this morning.
Great.
On my way before I came to the studio. And then for me, it's also, as you know, I have a high school freshman and a high school senior. And so there's only so much more time with them. And so just, I happily play Uber driver to them.
Yeah.
And going to all of the events and going to the sporting events and sitting out in the cold for Midwest baseball and sitting in the hot of the natatorium for swimming. Those are the things that I absolutely love to do. And like that, I will pour all of my time into my kids and my family that I can.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I'm glad you said something about working out, because, it's not like, a friend or a teammate or a family member, but like, my workout is kind of like my person too, I do think that as educators, we really got to take care of ourselves. And, these jobs can be very stressful. So, I started out this morning with, training with my trainer, because sometimes I just got to do it, like, especially if I know I got a big day or a stressful day, just to like clear my head so I can deliver my best thinking. Because that's what our kids deserve. Like, I think that's sometimes where we get lost. It's like, we don't make the connection between those things that are necessary for us to be able to deliver our best selves every day.
Right.
Like, and we'll sacrifice those things thinking, oh, well, it's going to give me more time to sit down in front of my computer and get through these emails. I'm like, no, you have to do that thing so that you can, respond to the problem or the challenge in the best way and the most necessary way that our kids
it's
deserve.
so important. And I am admittedly still working on getting better at that.
Yeah.
Like, I probably
it's a process.
Prioritize work a little bit too much. I know this weekend, if you want to join me, C2E2 is happening here in Chicago. So I will be present in my Jedi robes alongside my kids at like the Midwest version of Comic-Con.
Oh, that's cool.
If you want to, get up in some Star Wars gear, like we'll hook you up and come on this weekend.
I think I'll pass. But you know what? I could see that being a great time. I think the biggest Star Wars thrill that I ever received, I might even text you about it. I got the opportunity to fly on the Star Wars plane, the United plane that's like a star. Have you seen that before?
I have seen it. Yeah.
Okay. It happened recently. It was maybe like a year ago or something like that. And I just showed up to the plane. I was like, it's got Star Wars on the. That's the closest I've come to anything related to Star Wars.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But you enjoy.
Fair enough. All right. A couple of questions, and then we're going to get out of here. You'd mentioned before that as CEO, you face many challenges, and some of them being in Chicago are politically motivated. So can you help our audience understand what are some of the things that you're challenged in dealing with?
Sure. The politics in Chicago are disastrous. That's probably the best way to put it.
Say more. How does that impact your leadership and Noble Network?
Absolutely. Like, as adults, because like what's really driving it are adults, right? I truly believe we should be ashamed of ourselves. I oftentimes am dealing with situations, and I'll definitely go into greater detail, where it is very clear that there is policy being made, there are decisions that are being made that are happening in large part because of the adult interests and, adult interest, special interest groups and unions, like things that have are really centering our students and our families and the work that we've been called to do. And it can be very, very frustrating. So, as you know, last December 2023, the Chicago Public Schools Board of Education issued this resolution, essentially saying that they were going to transition away from school choice and invest in neighborhood schools instead. Now, listen, all schools should have the opportunity and the resources to thrive, because at the end of the day, there are students that are in those buildings who deserve the best high quality public education that they could possibly receive. So listen, I'm not in this like, let's pit, the neighborhood school against the charter school, against the select enrollment school, against the magnet school. Listen, like I said at the beginning, I think that I'm a neighborhood school. I serve neighborhood kids. My kids aren't swooping down here in Star Wars spaceships. My kids are from the community, okay? And they choose us. It's been really frustrating because that resolution wasn't grounded in anything. It wasn't grounded in anything except for politics. We didn't have students and families coming downtown to the Chicago Public Schools Board of Education and saying, we want X, Y, and Z. They didn't talk to parents. And so what's the impact of things like this that are politically driven by administration and other folks who don't have students, success in mind? Well, at the time, I'm going through a charter renewal with the CPS Board of Education. The people who say that I essentially should not exist are also the people deciding whether I am going to continue to exist. That's not right. So now I'm out here fighting at the front line to make the case for our existence, where students and families have already told the city that we deserve to exist because they're choosing us every single day. And the city needs noble schools. Yes. If you truly care about kids and you care about results and you care about outcomes, there's no world where we don't exist. And so we got the highest renewal term. We got 4 years.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And it's unacceptable.
Should be longer.
It should be longer. Because guess what? We all have things that we need to do to improve. Always. Like every day I'm thinking about problems. I'm thinking about how do we get better? That's my job. And why is it that we aren't given the same grace and the same resources as the struggling, what they would call quote unquote neighborhood school, and a lot of these schools have been struggling for many decades, and it's unacceptable, right? And they deserve more of whatever it's going to take in order for them to be able to do better. But yet with charter schools, you say, if you don't get something right within a year or 2 or 3 or 4, we're going to shut you down. That doesn't make any sense to me, because honestly, my families and students don't care about school structure. They just care about going to a great school.
That's right.
All right?
That's right.
Period. And so how do we ensure that all of our schools are great and they're given the opportunity to be great? Okay? And that's where politics comes into play, because the reality is we just got people who just don't want us here.
That's right.
They don't want us here. And so can we just say that? So can we just have honest conversations? I hope we can, even though it's a waste of time at the same time, right? I can't tell you how much time I've spent talking to people to justify our existence when I really need to be like focused on how we going to get all our kids.
12,000 kids in your schools.
Yeah. And all the and that's where I start off by saying like we should be ashamed of ourselves, because when these bad policies and these bad decisions and these bad resolutions that are not grounded in anything, that are not grounded in students and families, that are grounded in politics happen, now all these adults are taking time away from the work in order to deal with that. Our kids, they need us to be putting our time towards things that truly matter to them.
That's right.
Not this. So it's really frustrating. I mean, we have certainly the challenges with violence in our communities that, the impact of that spills over into our schools and, all the things that the pandemic left us with. But, that's the one thing that's really frustrating to me because it's manufactured drama that's not great for kids.
That's right. That's right. And it's distracting.
It's distracting
from the main thing.
Yeah.
From the main thing.
For sure.
It's educating our kids. Okay. Last question. Hopefully there will be many people listening to this who could be teachers or young administrators or students. Share a little bit about, and many of them may be looking saying, hey, I hope to one day lead a network. I hope one day to make an impact. Can you share some words for young people or earlier in their career people who are looking to make a difference and impact about what keeps you going in this work and what is the hope for the future that they're going to help craft?
Conversation I had with a few students last week. We talked about a lot of things, but one of the things that I said to them was, and this is fact, oftentimes I can tell your trajectory and how you're going to turn out based on the company you keep. Straight up, I've seen some kids choose circles where I'm like, man, that's not going to end well, because from my experience and what I learned is that, for example, my college crew, they're bomb. We are friends to this day. We're 25 years now, out of college.
That's strong.
I know.
That's strong.
I know. It's strong. And they push me to be better every single day. I remember I had the lowest GPA in the group. I wasn't, on the honor society, but they pushed me to be better. And so the company you keep matters. Your family's tricky because you don't get to choose your family. But, your friends, your networks, the folks you surround yourself with day to day, matters. The folks who I've chosen to be my friends or my chosen family, they push me every single day. And they lift me up and they support me because I fail just like anybody else. Yeah. But one of the things I've tried not to do is to sit there in the failure, but to learn from it and grow from it. Yeah. Certainly a critical lesson as a leader. And my chosen friends and my chosen family, and my family have helped me be the person I am today. So I tell people that all the time. I also tell people, whatever you do, give it your best.
That's right.
Crush it.
Be the best.
Be the best you can be. I was talking with someone about this the other day. My job is so hard some days. I mean, there's some days I just limp across the finish line. It's a Friday night. It's 7 p.m. I'm in bed. I don't have nothing else left. But I'm not out here picking tobacco like my parents were. Full stop.
Yes.
I'm not out here wondering where my next meal is going to come from. I'm not out here driving a tractor. I'm not out, there's so many people who have sacrificed for me to be able to do the things that I've been blessed to do. And so I'm going to make the best out of it. I'm going to get out of my woe is me, phases and, think about the opportunities I have and how I can make the most out of it. So I'm just a big believer in just crushing it. My grandmother and my grandfather, when they couldn't farm anymore, my grandpa Edward, he was a janitor at the local school, and my grandma was the cafeteria lady. Made the best collard greens, the best collard greens. I mean, this is a school in, rural Eastern North Carolina, so we eating collard greens for lunch. I have pictures of them in their school uniforms because they would take the school pictures, and the fact that now, we went from there to I'm leading one of the largest charter networks in the country. I could complain. I just choose not to. Yeah. I just choose every day to show up and be the best that I can be for them and for so many others, thousands of others in Chicago.
Amen. And thank you for all that you do, CJ. And thank you for spending time with me here today. I know you had a million other things going on, so deeply appreciate you and thank you for your incredible work.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here.